So let's think about this here, right? We did ask Chad a question about what are some life lessons, and we'd like to talk about them a little bit and just see if Mr. Bardales here actually agrees with this list, and in no particular order. It says build and maintain strong relationships. Friends, family, and romantic partners are important sources of support and happiness in life. Invest time and effort in building and maintaining these relationships. So do you agree with that being on a top 10 list?
I think that's it kind of relates to what I said earlier today about being, I kind of worded it a little bit differently in the sense of like just being present and really appreciating those relationships. But definitely, and I think this lesson you taught me when we first met because of networking. And I didn't know the power of networking, of the doors that it would open, because a lot of the times when you would teach me like, hey, just say hi to someone, even if your intention is not to sell to them, even because you never know if like now or in the future, a door, whether it be a job opportunity, a business opportunity, or maybe like they can refer to you like an employee when you grow your business. And that, I think that's one of the things that stuck with me. So now every time I meet someone, no matter what they do, I'm always like willing to just build that relationship and also try to maintain it as much as possible.
Yeah, it's big to, be connected. As much as I'm an introvert and don't necessarily like going out into crowded experiences, or, even like public speaking is still and will forever be awkward to me. I do understand like that connection piece is really big, having friends you can communicate with, which now just makes me think of a couple of friends that called me recently that I have missed calls that I need to call back, and I'm like, oh, I got just the pace of my day, but I definitely got to make those calls and follow up and stuff, because I know what I know what the situations are. Just some friends just like to check in and see what's up.
Exactly.
But family super important, and just again being present. And romantic partners, man, like that's a different type of elevation when you are romantically involved and kind of like looking at the world different and moving different with like what your day-to-day is and what your week plans are and things like that. But having those strong, well-rounded bonds to me are really important as far as like moving through a purpose-driven life.
Man, I'll tell you, with me personally on the romantic side, like I feel like in your 20s, there's a lot of pressure for you to find the one you love.
That's facts.
And I think one of the things that I'm learning is like, don't really be in a rush, and you're not necessarily falling into this timeline of like, you have to find the one you love by 24, then get married by the time that you're 26, 27. Some people are blessed. Some people have that experience.
Who made up these timelines, yo? I don't understand it.
That's very true.
So weird. Like,
because like how many people really got into a relationship or even got married because of social pressure? Because all of their Instagram feed shows engaged, or just married.
I feel that pressure.
For real. Because before, like, you would invite people to like your wedding that were most closest to you, but you wouldn't really have any way to share those photos. You would kind of keep those photos with you, unless like you would pass out that booklet that you would create. But now it's like everything is like on social media and stuff, and it's keeping up with the Joneses. Like, oh man, she got married. Oh, he got married. I gotta get it. So like in your 20s, a lot of the times I think the romance part plays like a big factor for a lot of people, because let's be real, a lot of people are just scared of being alone and feeling lonely.
They are. It's a fear. This is your boy Love Jones. Self-love is the best kind of love.
Today's gems are sponsored by BetterHelp, the leading online therapy platform connecting you with over 20,000 licensed therapists,
helping you getting back to loving you.
Communicate through video, audio, or unlimited messaging. BetterHelp offers you flexible options to communicate with your therapist.
With a simple questionnaire, BetterHelp will match you with the right therapist for your specific needs in as little as 48 hours.
Don't wait to start your mental health journey today with BetterHelp.
Go to betterhelp.com/empower610 for 10% off your first month of therapy with BetterHelp.
That's betterhelp.com/empower610.
And now I'm also wondering, like, you trying to throw subs, keeping up with the Joneses? That's crazy. Nah, I gotta talk slick though, because that's it is a very common phrase, and just kind of keep up. But I'm looking to reestablish new standards. But that's a good point. Like, people are in a rush, and more or less they're reacting out of a fear of being alone versus out of like an actual like desire. And then the impact of like the internet, like you're talking about, makes people lose their patience.
Yeah,
they don't focus on some of these things that they should learn, and it's like, all right, you may not be with the person you want, but like when I work with my college students, I'm always saying, like, find what you love to do, and then the person you will love will come eventually. Like, figure you out. What do you love about you? What do you love to do? What is the career or the business or the job you look to have that you're gonna love and be passionate about? And while you're like elevating and radiating in that way, you'll magically meet people just because of your moving in purpose. So I'm always recommending that to them. Not that they always listen to me, and they don't have to. It's their own lives, but it's always a suggestion I make.
And I think one thing I learned personally that I would add on to that as a phrase is building and maintaining a strong relationship also with yourself. Because a lot of the times you don't really get to learn about yourself, and you're going around kind of adjusting your personality to wherever you are in your social circle, versus really knowing who you are, and then setting those values and knowing what you like, what you don't like, what you're going to tolerate and what you're not going to tolerate.
Yeah, no, that's true, because that helps you with setting a standard.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What you'll allow from friends, what you'll allow from
business
members, what you'll allow in business. And I was having this conversation with someone the other day, like, sometimes you gotta get rid of people in your life. You don't owe anybody to allow people that are like violating your standards. That goes for friends, family. I shared an experience with somebody the other day where I had to fire a client. They're like, fire a client? I was like, well, yeah, like, in the business of things, I did everything in my power and was always very transparent, honest, and showing things. But yet I had a client kind of really come at me on some like left hand stuff, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. I'm not working with this group anymore. And
bye, Felicia.
Get rid of them. Not the Peruvian bye, Felicia. That wasn't Craig from Friday. Bye, Felicia.
Adios, Felicia.
Oh lordy. Pacheco presents Friday.
But yeah, I like this next one.
Take risks. Your 20s are the time to take risks and explore new opportunities. Don't be afraid to try new things, even if they scare you. So what's something new that you tried recently?
Well, I actually was going to relate this back to when I was 21.
21.
Because when I was 21, that's when I actually started my business, LBJ Media. And that's the brand that we are going to mention. Nyce Visions as well. But when I started my business at 21, it was a risk to take because, one, you need money to start a business. These days, you don't necessarily need a lot of money, depending on the type of business that you're trying to start. But there's a lot more resources for you to be able to start it. The whole risk of it is a lot of the times, if you're not growing up in a circle of friends that own businesses, or you don't have a family member that own a business, a lot of people will tell you, like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to risk your 20s and spend all of this time on your business? Because it does take a lot of time. And you and me both know. But I literally tried for like a week to just live a quote unquote what the standard would say a normal life of going to work and then coming back home, relaxing, watching TV. And it's just not for me. Like I love what I do when it comes to my business. I love figuring out new ways or new solutions and kind of creating that aspect. For me, I'm all about the creativity. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but taking that risk. And I think the biggest thing is also taking risks and avoiding regret. Because in your 20s, like, you don't really think about that. But then when you're like in your 40s or in your 50s, and then you're looking back, or even like your 60s or 70s, because I would still say like 40s and 50s is still young, but like 60s and 70s, you look back in your life and you start saying, man, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have done
and
that.
you never want to live with regrets. But I want to kind of speak more to something you mentioned about, you know, doing things in your 20s and then people talking to you about what you should do and how you should spend your time. I need everyone out there who's listening to this to understand this. I don't care if you're 20, 30, 40, 15, whatever. Do not, I repeat, do not let anybody else, I don't care if it's your mama, your daddy, your best friend, your wife, your
Nyce
husband,
Jonez.
whatever it is, or me, yes, including me. Don't let a single soul out there project their fears onto you. When you share what the hell you want to do and people start saying, oh, but aren't you afraid of this? Aren't you afraid of that? Those people that are doing that, they don't even realizing it. They're projecting their personal fears onto you,
Right.
in hopes that you don't do what you should be doing.
Yep.
And it's not conscious. They're not even conscious of it. It's just people naturally share how their view is and push it on to everybody else. You got something you want to do it. Forget fear. Get rid of the comfort zones. Try stuff. There's an entrepreneur, I forget who it was, so I apologize that I'm misquoting. Something I saw earlier from an entrepreneur, and they said something about failing fast. You learn through failure.
That is very true.
Take those bumps. You weren't born running.
And one of the things that I learned in my 20s also is about like mentorship. And I learned from you, and I learned from many other people about like what they tried out and what they tried out in their past. And like you shared with me many of like your failures and also your successes. So you would tell me, hey, this is what works, this is what doesn't. And then till this day, you'll still give me some feedback of like, you sure you want to try that? Or you sure you don't want to try something different? Or even asking me, so like explain to me why you did that, like your thought process. And I actually like when you do that, because then sometimes it makes me think, I'm like, why did I do that?
Yeah. And honestly, it's always from the most sincere spot. It's more like, not to question you, but sometimes we do things and we don't question ourselves.
That is very
I used
true.
to do that all the time, and it's like, no, like I always want the ability to think about something differently, because there might be something I didn't think about that can change the process and make something a little bit better. And so it's, you know, it's not like, oh, I don't want to ever preach doubt or fear on anyone, but it's more or less like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just presenting some different ways of doing things. But I always say this, look at your options, do your own research. You have the same tools I got.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this?
Exactly. And then also I would say when you take risk, also take your calculated risk, because some people can be delusional and they'll take unnecessary risks. So there is such a thing of saying taking unnecessary risks. So be realistic, but also have that balance between realistic and also your dream and your vision. I think that's what's important, because there's that little gray area of where you need a little bit of faith to kind of just leap in and then kind of find yourself. But that's why I think it's super important to know yourself first, because if you don't know yourself and you take the risk, then you're just lying to yourself. Then
That's
you hit
facts.
delusion.
And if you don't know yourself, you're at the risk of everyone else telling you about you.
Exactly. And then you either risk taking the wrong risk, or you risk just regretting not even taking it at all, because you're so involved in taking all these opinions from everybody that's not really relevant.
You know, some of the adults that are older in age that didn't take risks project their fears onto everyone else just because they never took a risk.
So next on the list, we have develop a positive mindset, cultivate a positive attitude, and learn to focus on the good in life. What do you think about that?
I mean, I consider myself to be extremely positive and optimistic and all that fun stuff. So I do agree that having that there has value, to having a positive attitude. I just don't want people to understand that they can't have down moments. Like, I think that what a lot of people don't realize, as much as people will preach positivity, there is a such thing as toxic positivity. Because you're like ignoring, you know, certain things. You know, I'm not saying dwell on them, but just recognize you can have moments and that's okay. You ain't got to be positive 24/7, 365.
And what's an example of toxic positivity for those who may not know it or may not recognize it?
Just not acknowledging, like, that bad things even happen. And just, sometimes people will beat themselves up over not seeing the positive in everything. Like, it's okay to be like, oh my God, that's like a tragic thing that happened, and not be able to make sense of something for a moment, or kind of like be down. Like, toxic positivity is almost like ignoring the fact that, bad things can happen, or even having like a pessimistic moment. So that's my take.
Yeah. And I think, like being that yes man also goes along with that. You see it a lot in the workplace when people are trying to get promoted. That toxic positivity.
Oh my, yeah. That'd be the worst. Like, yo, can you find their ass to kiss? Like, what are you doing?
Exactly. And I feel like the way I would reword it, because once again, like we're using chat GPT, and the way I would reword it is, instead of develop just a positive mindset, is learn to be thankful for even like the smallest wins.
Mm-hmm.
And because in my 20s, there was times where I'm always going to bring it back to business because it's something I'm super passionate about, but you could relate this back to anything else aside from business. But when I first started, I remember when I didn't have the camera that I do have now, or the equipment, and I was just dreaming about it. And I kind of put myself in a place, and not to be materialistic about it, but it's more along the lines of how I can create using that. So it's not about like the value of it or having it. It's just having that tool to be able to create, and really get that vision that I would have creatively. So whenever I would have my down moments, I would think about, yo, what am I doing right now? Like, at least I have this, you know what I mean? And I would kind of like bring myself up and be thankful. And one of the things that I would do a lot of the times is just practice being thankful for the little things, and kind of acknowledging and reminding myself like, hey, thankful that I have this, thankful that I have this person in my life, thankful that I have these things, thankful that I have this small win, that I was able to wake up today.
Be the little things. I like to approach things with having an attitude for gratitude. You know what I mean? So, so much is perspective, right? But it's like, all right, this thing may have happened, but my eyes still work. I'm still breathing.
Yeah.
I still have a chance to take these wrongs and make them right.
Exactly.
So leading into the next one, I think this one is really important. And for me, it's two-part, but I'll read it as it's stated here. It talks about learn to communicate effectively. Good communication skills are essential for success in both your personal and professional life. Practice active listening and learn how to express yourself clearly and respectfully.
There's a difference between listening to someone and hearing someone.
Big difference. How would you describe it?
So I would say hearing someone is just waiting for them to stop speaking. Listening to someone is understanding what message they are trying to convey to you.
Yeah. And I find it fascinating at people are in such a rush to respond, and they won't actively process, and they're like cutting you off while you're communicating, and they don't realize that while your mouth is moving, you're not consuming what you're meant to hear. So now you're actually wasting time.